In late August 1921, columns of coal miners came out of the West Virginia hollows carrying rifles, food, and strips of red cloth. They were not marching against the United States. They were marching toward Mingo County, where fellow miners had been jailed under martial law and union organizing could cost a family its home. As many as 10,000 men joined the march. Black miners, white mountaineers, and European immigrants moved together. At Blair Mountain, an anti-union force waited above them. What followed became the largest armed confrontation in American labor history, and then slipped from national memory. If you want more history told straight, take a second to like this video and subscribe. It is the difference between a story like this reaching people or disappearing again. Coal companies did more than own the mines. In remote valleys, they often owned the houses, stores, schools, and much of the land beneath the roads. A miner's job could determine where his family slept and where they bought their food. Some operators paid part of a worker's wages in company scrip, money that was useful mainly at the company store. Rent, tools, blasting supplies, medical fees, and groceries could be deducted before a miner ever saw the balance. This was not slavery, but the system could make leaving brutally difficult. Lose the job and the company could take back the house. Join the union and a miner risked blacklisting, eviction, or both. During strikes, entire families were pushed from company homes into tent colonies. Debt deepened the trap. The coal left the valley by the trainload, while many of the people who cut it remained one missed paycheck from disaster. The operators defended that system with private power. Baldwin Felt's detectives, company guards, friendly deputies, and state police watched meetings and patrolled the camps. The lines between private security and public law often blurred. Guards carried rifles, enforced evictions, and protected company property. To a miner deciding whether to organize, the question was not simply whether the union could win a contract. It was whether the law would protect his family at all. In Matewan, Police Chief Sid Hatfield gave the miners a different answer. On May 19, 1920, Baldwin Felt's agents arrived to evict union families. Hatfield and Mayor Cabell Testerman challenged their authority. On the main street, an argument over arrest warrants erupted into gunfire. 10 men were killed, including Testerman, 7 detectives, and 2 townspeople. Hatfield survived and became a symbol because a local officer had finally stood between mining families and the private guards sent against them. The coalfield conflict did not end at Matewan. Hatfield and his friend Ed Chambers still faced charges connected to the violence. On August 1, 1921, they walked toward the McDowell County Courthouse in Welch with their wives. Baldwin Felt's agents were waiting on the steps. In full view of witnesses, the agents shot both men to death. The killing was brazen, public, and immediately understood as a warning. Across the coal fields, it convinced many miners that legal protection had failed. Miners began gathering near Marmot, outside Charleston. Their destination was Mingo County, roughly 60 miles away. They meant to reach communities under martial law, free jailed miners, and break the anti-union blockade around the southern coal fields. Some union leaders feared disaster and urged the men to turn back. For a time, the march slowed. Then new clashes with state police convinced thousands that retreat would only leave their families exposed, and the columns moved south again. Estimates vary, but the force may have reached 10,000. The marchers were overwhelmingly men because they were working miners and, in many cases, veterans of the First World War. They were also racially and ethnically diverse. Black miners, native-born white miners, and immigrants from Europe shared the road. Many wore red bandanas so they could recognize one another. The popular claim that this created the word redneck is memorable, but historians treat it as folklore rather than settled fact. Blocking the route was Logan County Sheriff Don Chafin, a political power whose anti-union operation was financed by coal companies. Chafin assembled roughly 3,000 deputies, mine guards, local businessmen, and civilian volunteers. They were local men, drawn from the towns and payrolls Chafin controlled. Chafin's men carried rifles and machine guns, stockpiled ammunition, and occupied the ridges the miners would have to cross. Blair Mountain turned geography into a weapon. Chafin's defenders held the high ground behind felled trees, trenches, and machine gun positions. The miners climbed through dense woods and narrow gaps below them. Fighting intensified at the end of August and continued for several days. The miners used scouts, flanking movements, and veterans who understood battlefield discipline. It was an improvised army trying to force a passage through an organized defensive line. Then the battle moved into the air. Private aircraft working for Chafin's side flew over the miners. According to the National Park Service account, they dropped 2 gas bombs intended to cause nausea and 2 explosive bombs packed with gunpowder, nuts, and bolts. The attacks caused limited physical damage, but their meaning was unmistakable. Private power had brought aerial bombardment into an American labor dispute. Federal aircraft arrived later with the Army, but they served mainly in observation. The United States Army did not bomb the miners at Blair Mountain. The exact number killed remains uncertain because neither side kept a complete casualty list. A commonly cited official estimate is 16 dead, 12 miners, and 4 men from Chafin's force, though other accounts run higher. Many more were wounded. The uncertainty should not be inflated into a mystery with no evidence at all. It reflects scattered fighting across difficult terrain, incomplete reporting, and 2 forces that had reasons to hide their losses. President Warren Harding finally sent roughly 2,000 federal troops into the coal fields. They came from an army that was still segregated by race in 1921, so an integrated federal column would be historically wrong. The regulars advanced toward both civilian forces and ordered the fighting to stop. Many miners had worn U.S. uniforms in the First World War. They had taken up arms against company guards and hostile local authorities, not against the national government. Faced with federal soldiers, most surrendered their rifles or hid them in the woods and went home. No battle occurred between the miners and the Army. Peace on the mountain did not mean mercy in court. West Virginia indicted more than 500 miners on charges that included murder, conspiracy, and treason against the state. 20 Union members faced the treason charge that drew the greatest attention. Coal operators helped finance the prosecution. In 1922, Union leader Bill Blizzard was acquitted after a month-long trial, and most of the celebrated cases failed. But the defense consumed money the Union needed to sustain striking families, and the organizing drive in southern West Virginia collapsed. Blair Mountain was not an immediate victory disguised as a defeat. The miners failed to reach Mingo County, the prosecution's drained District 17, and Union power in the southern coal fields remained broken for years. The balance shifted only during the New Deal. The National Industrial Recovery Act of 1933 gave workers new federal protection for collective organizing, and the Wagner Act strengthened that framework in 1935. Union membership then surged through the coal fields. The marchers did not win those laws on Blair Mountain, but their struggle showed why legal protection had become necessary. For decades, Blair Mountain sat awkwardly outside the usual national story. It was too organized to dismiss honestly as a riot and too violent to fit a comforting tale of steady reform. Yet the evidence remained: rifles surrendered to federal troops, bombs recovered from the hills, court records, newspaper photographs, and families who remembered. The armed columns were men drawn from a diverse workforce. The women of the coal fields fought their own fight through organizing, relief work, tent colonies, and the defense of their families. Blair Mountain matters because ordinary people reached the point where they believed the law served everyone but them, and because remembering them accurately is more powerful than turning them into a legend.